The alarm screamed through the ship like a dying animal. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Smoke poured from the engine room, thick and black, filling the air with the smell of burning metal and melting wires. Captain gripped the edge of his command chair as the ship shook violently. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too many emergencies to panic now. But even he felt his stomach drop when the main screen flickered and showed him the truth. Engine failure, complete and total. "How bad?" he asked, his voice steady despite everything. The chief engineer looked up from her console. Her face was covered in sweat and oil. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was clear. "Bad, Captain. We lost the primary drive. Secondary is damaged. We have maybe 6 hours of life support if we stay in space." Closed his eyes for just a moment. The cargo vessel's promise had been his home for 12 years. He knew every sound she made, every vibration in her bones. And right now, she was dying. "The moon," said a calm voice from behind him. Turned, stood near the observation window, looking out at the gray-green sphere hanging in the darkness. She was the ship's, a woman of 28 years with short black hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. Some crew members found her unsettling. She never seemed afraid of anything. "7," continued, not looking away from the moon. "Atmosphere is breathable. Gravity is close to Earth standard. We can survive there while we wait for rescue." "Do we know anything about that moon?" asked. Finally turned to face him. Her dark eyes were thoughtful. "Almost nothing. It's uncharted. No colony has ever been established here. No survey team has ever returned a report." "Has anyone ever landed there?" "Unknown." The security officer stepped forward. He was a broad-shouldered man with a scar running down his left cheek. He had been a soldier before joining the merchant fleet, and he still carried himself like one. "Captain, if no one has ever reported back from that moon, maybe there's a reason." Looked at the moon again. It hung there, silent and mysterious, offering shelter and danger in equal measure. He thought about his crew, 15 people who trusted him to keep them alive. "We don't have a choice," he said finally. "Prepare for emergency landing, everyone to crash positions." The next hour was chaos. The ship groaned and screamed as it entered the moon's atmosphere. Heat shields glowed orange, then white. Worked desperately to keep the remaining systems online while organized the crew into the safest sections of the ship. Sat quietly in her seat, her hands folded in her lap. She watched as the gray-green surface rushed up to meet them. Forests, mountains, rivers that glittered like silver threads. It was beautiful, she thought. Whatever happened next, at least they would die somewhere beautiful. But they didn't die. The landing was rough. The ship hit the ground at an angle, carving a long trench through the forest floor. Trees snapped like twigs. Metal screamed against rock. When it finally stopped, half the lights were dead and the air was thick with dust. Was the first to move. He unbuckled his harness and stood on shaking legs. "Report," he called out. "Is everyone alive?" One by one, voices answered. Bruises and cuts, but no deaths. No serious injuries. They had been lucky. Appeared at his side, wiping blood from a gash on her forehead. "The ship is done, Captain. Even if we had parts, I couldn't fix her. We're stuck here until rescue comes." "How long until someone notices we're missing?" "Our scheduled check-in is in 3 days. After that, maybe another week before a search party reaches this sector." 10 days. They would need to survive on an unknown moon for at least 10 days. Gathered the crew in the cargo hold, the only section large enough to hold everyone. He looked at their faces, scared, confused, some still in shock. These were good people, merchants and engineers, not soldiers or explorers. They hadn't signed up for this. "Listen to me," he said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "I know this isn't what any of us expected, but we are alive. The air outside is breathable. We have food and water supplies that will last us 2 weeks. All we need to do is stay calm, stay together, and wait for rescue." What about wildlife? Someone asked. What if there are predators out there? Glanced at, she stepped forward, her calm presence somehow reassuring. I will conduct surveys of the surrounding area, she said. We'll establish a safe perimeter, set up sensors and alarms. Whatever lives on this moon will be ready for it. The crew seemed to accept this. Slowly, they began to move, following orders, setting up emergency shelters using cargo containers and salvaged materials from the ship. By nightfall, they had a small camp established near the wrecked vessel. Fires burned in metal drums, providing warmth and light. Guards were posted at 4 points around the perimeter. It wasn't much, but it was something. Walked the edge of the camp as the second moon rose in the sky, casting everything in pale blue light. The forest around them was dense and dark. Strange sounds echoed from the depths, calls and cries that belonged to no animal she recognized. She stopped near a gap in the trees and crouched down. The ground was soft here, almost muddy, and there, pressed into the earth, was a footprint. It was larger than her entire torso, 5 toes, each ending in what must have been a massive claw. The print was fresh, no more than a few hours old. Studied it for a long moment. Then she stood and looked into the darkness between the trees. She couldn't see anything, but she had the strangest feeling that something was looking back at her. What did you find? His voice came from behind her. Tracks, she said simply. Something large, probably a predator based on the claw structure. Moved to stand beside her, his hand resting on the weapon at his hip. How large? Very. He was quiet for a moment. Should we tell the captain? Yes, but don't alarm the others. We don't know anything yet. She paused, still staring into the forest. Whatever made these tracks, it knows we're here. It's been watching us. How do you know? Pointed to another set of tracks, partially hidden by fallen leaves. They led toward the camp, stopped about 50 meters away, and then retreated back into the forest. It came close, she said. It watched, and then it left. That's not the behavior of a mindless animal, that's curiosity, intelligence. Felt a chill run down his spine that had nothing to do with the cool night air. What kind of creature are we dealing with? Finally turned away from the forest. Her face was as calm as ever, but there was something in her eyes, not fear exactly, something closer to interest. I don't know, she admitted, but I intend to find out. She walked back toward the camp, leaving alone at the edge of the trees. He took one last look into the darkness, then followed her. Behind him, in the shadows where no human eye could see, something massive shifted its weight and watched them go. The hunt had not yet begun, but soon, very soon, it would. And the hunters of 7 had no idea what kind of prey had just fallen into their world. Deep in the forest of 7, far from the crashed ship and the strange soft creatures that had fallen from the sky, they gathered. They were magnificent and terrible, 8 feet tall when standing upright, covered in scales the color of midnight. Their eyes were large and golden, designed to see the smallest movement in total darkness. Their claws were black as volcanic glass, sharp enough to cut through bone with a single swipe. For 10,000 years they had been the ultimate predators of this world. Nothing challenged them, nothing escaped them. The alpha of this hunting pack stood at the center of the gathering. He was larger than the others, his mane of black spines fully grown and marked with the scars of 100 kills. He had hunted every creature on 7. He had never known fear. The sky creatures are weak, he growled, his voice like stones grinding together. They have no claws, no fangs, no armor. They move slowly and make too much noise. They are prey. The other hunters murmured in agreement. This was obvious. This was natural law. But old Maven, the eldest of the pack, remained silent. He sat apart from the others, his scales faded with age, his eyes clouded but still sharp. He had seen more seasons than any alive, and he remembered stories that the young ones had forgotten. Something troubles you, Elder? Asked, noticing his silence. Maven was quiet for a long moment. There are old tales, he said finally. Stories from before our recorded history. Stories of creatures that came from a world of endless danger, a death world where even the plants could kill. These creatures had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. And yet what? Maven looked at with his ancient eyes. And yet they were called the unblinking ones, because when they looked at you, they did not look away. They did not run. They looked at you the way we look at prey. Made a sound of dismissal. Children's stories, these creatures I have seen with my own eyes. They are soft and slow. They will be easy meat. Then send a scout, Maven suggested. Observe them, learn their weaknesses before you attack. Considered this. It was not bad advice, even if he thought it was unnecessary. Very well, my son, you will go. A young stepped forward. Was not yet fully grown. His mane was short, his claws not yet at their full length. He was eager to prove himself, to earn his place among the hunters. This was his chance. Watch them, commanded. Learn their patterns, find their weaknesses, but do not engage, not yet. Bowed his head in respect. Yes, father. He slipped into the shadows and was gone. The sun rose over 7, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The human camp was waking up. Crew members emerged from their makeshift shelters, stretching sore muscles and checking equipment. Had been awake for hours. She sat on a fallen log at the edge of camp, her in her hands, studying the images she had taken of the tracks. The creature that made them was fascinating. Based on the depth and spacing of the prints, she estimated it weighed at least 300 kilograms. The claw marks suggested it was a predator, built for killing, and the pattern of movement indicated intelligence far beyond a simple animal. You didn't sleep again. She looked up, was approaching with 2 cups of hot liquid, some kind of emergency ration tea that tasted like nothing but at least provided warmth. I was working, said, accepting the cup. Sat down beside her. You know, most people would be scared. We're stranded on an alien moon with giant predators watching us, but you seem almost excited. Considered this. Fear is a response to the unknown. The more I learn about these creatures, the less unknown they become, and the less unknown they are, the less there is to fear. That's a very logical way to look at being hunted. We don't know that we're being hunted. We only know that we're being observed. Those are different things. Shook her head but smiled. I don't know how you stay so calm. Didn't answer. The truth was more complicated than she could easily explain. She had grown up on a mining colony where accidents happened every day. She had seen death before she was 10 years old. Fear was something she had learned to put aside, to lock away in a box in her mind where it couldn't interfere with what needed to be done. She finished her tea and stood up. I'm going to collect samples from the forest. We should understand the local biology in case we need food or medicine. Should you go alone? I'll stay within sight of camp, and I'll take a communicator. She gathered her equipment and walked toward the tree line. The forest of 7 was strange and beautiful. The trees had bark that shimmered with natural color, and their leaves were shaped like stars. Small creatures that looked like a mix between birds and insects fluttered between the branches. The air smelled sweet, almost like honey. Moved carefully, collecting samples and recording observations. She was so focused on her work that she almost didn't notice when the forest went silent. She stopped. The birds had stopped singing. The insects had stopped buzzing. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Something was watching her. Turned slowly, scanning the shadows between the trees. She saw nothing, but she could feel it, that prickling sensation at the back of her neck that humans had developed over millions of years of evolution. The ancient warning system that told you when a predator was near. She didn't run. Running was the worst thing you could do when facing a predator. It triggered the chase instinct, turned you from a potential threat into confirmed prey. Instead, she stood perfectly still and waited. A shadow moved. Emerged from behind a massive tree trunk. He had been following this creature for an hour, studying its strange movements, its odd behavior of stopping to touch plants and rocks. He didn't understand what it was doing, but it seemed harmless, weak, easy. Now seeing it alone and separated from its pack, his instincts screamed at him. This was the perfect moment. Attack, kill, prove yourself. He stepped fully into the light, letting the creature see him. He wanted to see the fear in its eyes. He wanted to watch it run so he could chase it down. That was the way of things. That was how the hunt worked. The creature turned to face him, raised his claws, extending them to their full length. He opened his mouth to show his fangs. He made himself as large and threatening as possible. The creature did not run. It looked at him, directly at him, its strange, small eyes fixed on his face, and did not look away. Felt something he had never felt before, a coldness spreading through his chest, a tightness in his muscles. His claws, raised and ready to strike, began to shake. The creature's eyes were not the eyes of prey. Prey eyes were on the sides of their heads, designed to watch for danger while they fled. But this creature's eyes faced forward. They locked onto him like targeting systems. They tracked his every movement with perfect precision. And they did not blink. Had faced charging beasts twice his size. He had fought rivals for territory. He had never felt fear. But now, standing in front of this small, soft, clawless creature, he felt something ancient stir in the depths of his brain. Something his ancestors had known. Something that screamed at him to get away. The creature was not afraid. The creature was looking at him the way he looked at prey. Lowered his claws, he took a step backward, then another. The creature continued to watch him, calm and patient, as if it had all the time in the world. He turned and ran. He ran faster than he had ever run before, crashing through the underbrush, not caring how much noise he made. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs ached, until the human camp was far behind him and he was deep in familiar territory. Only then did he stop. Only then did he try to understand what had just happened. He had found prey, weak, defenseless prey, and he had run from it. Because when it looked at him, he had seen something in its eyes, something that spoke of patience, of endurance, of a predator that didn't need claws or fangs because it had something far more dangerous. The will to never stop. Shuddered and began the long walk back to his father. He had to warn the pack. These creatures were not what they seemed. These creatures were not prey at all. Burst into the gathering place like a wounded animal. His scales were scratched from his wild run through the forest. His breath came in ragged gasps. His eyes were wild with something the other had never seen in one of their own. Terror. Rose to his feet, his massive form blocking out the light of the twin suns. What happened? Where is the prey? Did you fail to find them? I found them, managed, still trying to catch his breath. I found one alone. I was ready to attack, but what? His voice was growing dangerous. He did not tolerate weakness. He did not accept failure. It looked at me, father. It looked at me and it did not run. It did not scream. It did not show fear. It just looked with eyes like ours, eyes that face forward, eyes that hunt. The gathered murmured among themselves. This was strange. This was wrong. Prey ran. Prey always ran. That was the natural order. Old Maven leaned forward, his clouded eyes suddenly sharp with interest. Tell me more, young one. Tell me exactly what you saw. Tried to find the words. It was small, half my size. It had no claws, no fangs, no scales. Its skin was soft and bare. By all rights, it should have been easy meat, but when I raised my claws, when I showed my teeth, it did nothing. It just stood there and watched me, and something inside me, something I have never felt before, told me to run. Coward snarled, you shame our bloodline with this weakness. No, Maven's voice cut through the air like a blade. The old stood up slowly, his ancient bones creaking. No, he speaks the truth. I can see it in his eyes. He is not a coward. He felt something real, something our ancestors knew. Turned on the elder. What are you talking about, old one? Maven walked to the center of the gathering, his movements slow but deliberate. I told you of the old stories, the unblinking ones, creatures from a death world who survived not because they were strong but because they never stopped. They were persistence hunters. Do you know what that means? The other were silent. They did not know. It means they did not hunt the way we do, Maven continued. We are ambush predators. We hide, we wait, we strike fast and kill quickly. We rely on fear, the fear that makes prey freeze or run. Once prey runs, we chase. Once prey freezes, we kill. This is our way. He paused, looking around at the gathered hunters. But persistence hunters are different. They do not hide. They do not wait. They follow. They walk. They never stop walking. Their prey runs and they follow. The prey runs again and they follow. The prey becomes tired, weak, unable to continue. And still the hunters follow, until the prey cannot run anymore, until the prey simply lies down and accepts death. Felt something cold creep down his spine. That is impossible. No creature can hunt that way. It would take days. Yes, Maven agreed. Days, weeks if necessary. The unblinking ones were patient beyond imagining. They did not need to be fast. They did not need to be strong. They simply needed to never stop. How do you know these stories are true? Maven was quiet for a long moment. Because I met one, once, many seasons ago when I was young and foolish. A creature fell from the sky, alone, injured. I thought it would be an easy kill. I stalked it for hours, waiting for the perfect moment, and when I finally revealed myself. What happened? It looked at me, with those forward-facing eyes, those patient, calm, hunting eyes, and I felt what your son felt today. That ancient fear, that deep knowing that I was not facing prey. I was facing something that had evolved to hunt things far more dangerous than me. What did you do? I left. I watched from a distance. For 3 days I watched as it built shelter, found food, created tools from nothing. And on the 3rd day a ship came and took it away. I never saw one again, until now. The gathering was silent. Even for all his pride, could not dismiss the elder's words. Maven had been the greatest hunter of his generation. If he had felt fear, then perhaps fear was appropriate. Far across the forest was returning to camp. She walked calmly, her sample containers full, her mind already processing what she had experienced. Met her at the perimeter. You're back late, we were getting worried. I had an encounter, she said simply. His hand moved to his weapon. What kind of encounter? One of the creatures, a juvenile I think, smaller than the prince I found yesterday. It confronted me in a clearing. Are you hurt? No, it ran away. Blinked, it ran away from you. You're half its size and you have no weapons. Yes, it was interesting. She walked past him toward Captain's shelter, hurried to keep up, his mind struggling to understand. Wait. A giant predator with claws the size of my forearm ran away from you, and all you can say is that it was interesting. I have a theory about why it happened. The captain should hear it. They found reviewing supply inventories with. Both looked up as entered, and both immediately noticed the controlled excitement in her usually blank expression. Something happened, said. It wasn't a question. Nodded. She pulled out her and projected a holographic image, a rough sketch of the creature she had seen. I made contact with one of the local predators. Based on body structure and behavior, I believe they are ambush hunters. They rely on triggering flight responses in their prey. When prey runs, they chase. When prey freezes, they attack. Their entire hunting strategy is built around fear. And you didn't run or freeze, said slowly, beginning to understand. No, I stood still and maintained eye contact. This confused the creature. It didn't know how to respond to a target that wasn't behaving like prey. Leaned forward. But why? Why would simple eye contact scare off a predator? Set down her. Humans are not prey animals. We evolved as persistence predators on Earth. Our eyes face forward because we needed to track moving targets over long distances. Our ancestors hunted by following prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We didn't need speed or strength. We needed patience, determination, the ability to never stop. She paused, letting this sink in. These creatures have never encountered anything like us before. To them, forward-facing eyes mean hunter. Calm behavior means confidence. When I looked at that creature and didn't look away, its instincts told it that I was not prey. I was something that hunts. Laughed, a short bark of disbelief. You're saying we accidentally terrified a giant alien predator just by looking at it? Not accidentally. It's our nature. We evolved on a world so dangerous that even our prey animals could kill us. Everything on Earth fights back. These creatures have been apex predators for so long that they don't understand what it means to face something that isn't afraid. We confuse them. We frighten them. Because deep in their biology, they recognize what we are. "And what is that?" asked quietly. Met his eyes. The most dangerous kind of predator. The kind that doesn't look dangerous at all until it's too late. The room was silent. Outside, the twin suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Somewhere in the forest, a pack of alien hunters was reconsidering everything they thought they knew about prey. And in the human camp, 15 soft, clawless creatures began to understand that maybe, just maybe, they were more dangerous than they had ever realized. 3 days passed on 7. The humans fell into a routine. They reinforced their shelters, rationed their supplies, and kept careful watch on the forest around them. Continued her surveys, always returning with new samples and new observations. She never saw the creatures again, but she found their tracks often, always at a distance, always watching. The watch too, but they did not attack, was furious, but even he could not ignore Maven's warning. The pack needed more information. They needed to understand what they were dealing with before making their move. On the 4th day, his patience ran out. "This is foolishness," he growled at the morning gathering. "We are the hunters of 7. We do not hide from prey. We do not fear soft creatures with no claws. Whatever my son experienced, whatever stories the elder tells, these things are beneath us. Today we confront them. Today we show them who rules this world." Some of the younger hunters cheered. They were tired of waiting, tired of the strange tension that had fallen over the pack. They wanted action. They wanted blood. Maven said nothing. He simply watched with his ancient eyes, knowing that some lessons could only be learned through experience. Stood apart from the others. He had not spoken much since his encounter in the forest. The other young mocked him, calling him coward, calling him weak. But he remembered the feeling of those eyes on him. He remembered the cold certainty that he was being measured, evaluated, judged, and found wanting. His father's voice cut through his thoughts. "You will come. You will stand beside me. You will redeem your honor." Bowed his head. "Yes, father." The hunting party moved through the forest like shadows. 12, each one a killer, each one eager to prove themselves against these strange invaders. They made no sound. They left no trace. By the time the sun reached its peak, they had surrounded the human camp completely. Noticed them first. He was on patrol when he saw movement in the trees, too large to be the small creatures they had observed, too deliberate to be random. His hand went to the weapon at his hip, but he didn't draw it. Instead, he activated his communicator. "Captain, we have visitors." Emerged from his shelter within moments, and were right behind him. Other crew members gathered, their faces pale with fear. They could all see them now, massive shapes moving between the trees, golden eyes gleaming in the shadows. "Everyone stay calm," ordered. "No sudden movements. No weapons unless absolutely necessary." "Captain," one of the crew members whispered, "there must be a dozen of them. If they attack." "If they were going to attack without warning, they wouldn't have let us see them. This is a display. They want something." Nodded. "He's right. This is a dominance ritual. They're testing us. They want to see how we respond to intimidation. As if on cue, stepped out of the forest. He was enormous, easily the largest creature any of them had ever seen. His scales gleamed like polished armor. His claws caught the sunlight and glittered like obsidian blades. His eyes swept across the human camp with obvious contempt. Behind him, the other emerged from hiding. They formed a half-circle around the camp, blocking any escape route to the forest. Their message was clear: you are surrounded, you are trapped, you are ours. Took a deep breath. Then he stepped forward, walking toward with a steady pace, and moved to flank him. "What are you doing?" hissed from behind. "What needs to be done," replied without turning around. "Stay here, protect the others." The three humans stopped about 10 meters from. The Alpha towered over them, nearly 3 times their height. He could have killed all 3 of them with a single swipe of his claws. He knew it. They knew it. And yet they did not back away. Felt something stir in his chest. Not quite the cold dread his son had described, but something close. An uneasiness. A sense that something was wrong with this picture. Prey should be running. Prey should be screaming. Prey should not be standing before him with calm eyes and steady hands. "You trespass on our hunting grounds," he growled, his voice deep enough to vibrate in their bones. "You invade our world. You are prey, yet you do not act like prey. Explain yourselves." Stepped forward. She was the smallest of the 3 humans, barely reaching his knee, but her voice was clear and unwavering. "We did not come here by choice. Our ship was damaged. We crashed on your moon. We are waiting for rescue. You should not have survived the landing. Humans are hard to kill." Leaned down, bringing his massive head close to hers. His breath washed over her, hot and smelling of meat. "I could kill you now. One strike. Your soft body would tear like wet leaves." Looked directly into his golden eyes. "You could try." The forest went silent. The others shifted nervously. No creature had ever spoken to this way. No creature had ever dared. Spoke next, his voice quiet but carrying. "On our world, there is a saying. The wolf on the hill is not as hungry as the wolf climbing the hill." Turned his attention to the human. "What is a wolf?" "A predator like you, but smaller, and they learned long ago not to hunt humans." "Why?" His lips curved into something that was almost a smile. "Because humans hunt back and we don't stop, ever. We chased the wolves across mountains and deserts. We followed them through snow and storm. And when they finally stopped running, we were still there. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. We follow. We endure. We outlast. And in the end, we always catch what we're chasing." Stepped forward, drawing his attention. "We are not your prey. We don't want to be your enemies, but make no mistake, if you attack us, we will fight. And even if you kill us, we will hurt you. We will hurt you in ways you cannot imagine, because that's what humans do. We don't surrender. We don't give up. We make every victory cost more than it's worth." Stared at the 3 small creatures before him. He could smell their fear. Yes, they were afraid. But their fear didn't control them. It didn't drive them to run or freeze. Instead, it seemed to make them sharper, more focused, more dangerous. He remembered Maven's words. Persistence hunters. They follow until you cannot run anymore. For the first time in his life, wondered if he was on the wrong side of the hunt. Behind him, watched the confrontation with growing understanding. He saw his father's hesitation. He saw the way the other hunters shifted uneasily. And he saw the 3 humans standing firm, unbent, unbroken, despite being surrounded by creatures that could tear them apart. This was not the courage of the foolish. This was something deeper, something ancient, something that spoke of a species that had faced down every predator on their world and refused to be prey. Straightened to his full height, the moment of decision had arrived. Attack or retreat, kill or walk away. He looked at the humans, at their calm eyes, at their steady hands. He thought about the stories Maven had told. He thought about his son's terror. And he made his choice. "You have until the next sun rises," he said slowly. "Then we talk again. Bring your leader, bring your strongest. We will see if you are truly what you claim to be." He turned and walked back into the forest. One by one, the other followed. Within moments, they had vanished like shadows, leaving no trace of their presence. Let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. But they were alive. They had faced down the apex predators of this world, and they had survived. Beside him's face showed the ghost of a smile. "That went well." Laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "If that was well, I'd hate to see badly." But they all knew the truth. They had passed the first test. They were no longer certain that humans were prey. Tomorrow would determine what they became instead. The night was long. Few humans slept. They sat around their fires, talking in low voices, wondering what the next day would bring. Some thought they should try to run, to find another place on the moon to hide, but rejected this idea immediately. Running would only confirm that they were prey, and they had spent too much effort proving otherwise to throw it all away now. Spent the night preparing. She studied everything she had learned about their body language, their social structure, their apparent communication patterns. If tomorrow was going to be a negotiation, she wanted to be ready. When dawn finally came, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, the humans gathered at the edge of their camp. Stood at the front, with on his right and on his left. Behind them, the other crew members waited, scared but determined. The forest stirred, and they emerged. But this time it was different. They didn't surround the camp. They didn't display their claws. They walked slowly, almost ceremonially, forming a single line facing the humans. Stood at the center, and beside him, to everyone's surprise, was. The young looked different today. His earlier fear had been replaced by something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or wonder. He stared at with his golden eyes, and she stared back, just as she had in the forest. This time, neither looked away. Stepped forward. "I have thought on your words," he said. His voice was less aggressive today, more measured. "I have spoken with our elder. He tells me stories of your kind, the unblinking ones he calls you, hunters from a death world." Nodded slowly. "Our world is called Earth, and yes, it was dangerous. Everything on it learned to fight. Everything on it learned to survive. We are what remains of 1,000,000,000 years of things trying to kill us and failing. You have no claws, no fangs, no armor." "We have tools," replied. "We have minds that never stop thinking of new ways to survive. And we have something that perhaps no other species in the universe has learned quite so well." "What is that?" Answered, "Cooperation. On Earth, the most dangerous predator was never a single creature. It was the pack, the tribe, the group that hunted together, protected each other, shared knowledge across generations. A single human is not very threatening, but humans are never really single. Even when we're alone, we carry the knowledge and experience of our entire species. Considered this. On 7, the hunted in packs, but each pack was isolated. They did not share knowledge. They did not cooperate beyond their immediate group. The idea of an entire species working together, building on each other's achievements, passing down accumulated wisdom, it was staggering. "Your elder spoke of persistence," he said finally, "of hunting that does not stop." "Yes," confirmed. "On Earth we would choose our prey and follow it, not running, walking. Our bodies are designed for walking. We can walk farther and longer than almost any animal on our planet, and while we walked, our prey ran. Again and again it would run away thinking it had escaped, but we always appeared again. Eventually the prey would be too tired to run anymore. It would lie down, and we would be there." Spoke for the first time. His voice was younger than his father's, rougher, uncertain. "Why? Why did you not just find easier prey? Why follow one creature for so long?" Looked at the young. She saw the question in his eyes, the same question he had been asking himself since that moment in the forest. Why hadn't she run? Why hadn't she been afraid? "Because that's who we are," she said gently. "We don't give up, we don't stop. When we set our minds to something, we see it through to the end. It's not about strength or speed, it's about will, the refusal to quit. She took a step closer too. Her small form barely reached his shoulder, but she held his gaze without hesitation. In the forest, when you raised your claws, you expected me to run, but I couldn't run. Not because I'm brave, but because running isn't what humans do. We face things, we figure them out, we adapt and overcome. I thought you were prey, admitted quietly. When I first saw you, I was certain. You looked so weak, so soft, but then you looked back at me and I felt fear. Not just fear, recognition. You looked at me the way we look at prey, but there was something else too, something I didn't understand until now. What? Glanced at his father, then back at curiosity. You were studying me, learning about me. Even when I threatened you, you were gathering information. That's terrifying. You were never really afraid, were you? You were just waiting to understand. Smiled, a real smile, the first one she had shown on this moon. You understand more than you know. That's exactly what we do. We learn, we study, we figure out how things work, and then we decide what to do with that knowledge. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, a piece of metal carved into the shape of a leaf. She had made it from scraps of the ship, working through the night. On our world, we exchange gifts as signs of friendship. This is for you, to remember that not all encounters have to end in violence. Stared at the small metal leaf. It gleamed in the morning light, intricate and beautiful. He had never seen anything like it. Slowly, carefully, he extended one massive claw and accepted the gift. Watched this exchange in silence. He saw his son engaging with a creature that, by all logic, should have been dead. He saw respect passing between them, the same respect that hunters showed to worthy rivals. And he understood. These creatures were not prey, they were not rivals, they were something new, something they had never encountered in all their thousands of years of dominance. They were equals. The alpha reached up and gripped one of his own claws. With a sharp twist, he broke it off at the base. Black blood welled up, but he showed no pain. This claw was old, near the end of its growth cycle anyway. It would regrow within a season. But the gesture itself was ancient, significant. This is given only to those who have earned respect through strength, he said, extending the claw toward. You have faced us without fear. You have stood when lesser creatures would have fallen. Whatever your kind may be, you are not prey. Accepted the claw with a bow, a gesture of respect that somehow understood. Thank you, we will remember this. The tension that had hung over both groups for days finally began to ease. The hunters relaxed their postures. The human crew members stopped gripping their makeshift weapons. For the first time since the crash, the possibility of something other than violence seemed real. His communicator crackled to life. She looked down at it, then up at the captain, her eyes wide. Sir, I'm picking up a signal. It's the rescue ship. They'll be here in 6 hours. A cheer went up from the human crew. 6 hours. They had survived. They were going home. Tilted his head, not understanding the words but recognizing the tone. You will leave now. Soon, confirmed. Our people are coming for us. Will others return, more of your kind? Answered, perhaps, someday, but if they do, they will know about you. They will know that they are not to be hunted, that you are equals, not prey. Nodded slowly. This was acceptable. More than acceptable, it was the best possible outcome. His world would remain his world. His pack would remain supreme. But now they knew that somewhere among the stars there were creatures like them, creatures who hunted, creatures who did not back down. The hours passed quickly. The humans packed their equipment and prepared for departure. The watched from the forest edge, no longer hiding, no longer threatening. When the rescue ship finally descended from the sky, its engines burning bright against the blue, stood at the very front of the watching crowd. Paused at the ramp of the ship. She looked back at the young, at the metal leaf still clutched carefully in his massive claw. He raised his other hand in a gesture that might have been a wave. She raised hers in return. Then she boarded the ship. and the doors closed behind her, and the promised survivors rose into the sky. Watched until the ship was nothing but a point of light among the stars. The elder, Maven, came to stand beside him. "You understand now," the old said. "It wasn't a question." "I think so," replied. "They were never prey, they were never even really in danger, they were just waiting, figuring us out, learning." "Yes, that is what makes them so frightening and so fascinating." Maven paused. "Do you think they will return?" Thought about the small human with the calm eyes, the one who had looked at him without fear, the one who had given him a gift instead of a fight. "I hope so," he said. "I hope they do." Above them, the stars glittered in the darkening sky. Somewhere among them, a ship carried 15 soft, clawless creatures back to their death world. Creatures who had faced down the greatest predators of 7 without ever raising a weapon. Creatures who had proven, once again, that the most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't claws or fangs or strength. It was a species that never gave up. It was humanity.